Hello. So today we're going to show you part 2 of our rolling star assembly. This is going to be a rather short video, and hopefully you've looked at part 1 because you need to start with part 1 to add part 2. So let me show you a little bit about what we're talking about. So this is the instructions for the rolling star assembly, and I'm looking at page 13 right here. And so we are going to start this video with the very bottom of page 13. Hopefully you can see my mouse. And we'll continue on through page 14, page 15, 16, and finally page 17 to get this whole quilt assembled. So let's get started with the video. So continuing with the assembly of our rolling star quilt. Next, this will be the bottom of page 13, what we're doing right now. So you'll take one of your petal blocks, you'll take your W tri blocks, and this is the one with fabric 1, and you're going to stitch them on either side. And you'll follow the same steps. You'll put them right sides together, put pins at the ends, matching your stitching line, pins in the middle, and stitch from the beginning to the end, doing a small back stitch, taking care not to stitch into the seam allowance. Then you'll flip this one out and you'll do the same for this one. And when you're finished, you'll have these. So you will make 4 of these and then set them aside. So we're moving on to page 14 in the instructions, and we're going to make some corner units. So the one I have here, we're going to make 2 of these. So we have blocks 4, 5, and block 6 with the wood grain quilting. So 4, 5, and 6. And then we have our petal block. Then we have diamond 1, and we have diamond 2 right here. So the first step, we want to take blocks 4 and 5 and put them right sides together and stitch the seam. Again, we're pinning the ends, pinning the middle. Begin your sewing right at the edges and end right at the the basting stitch line. Don't go into the seam allowance, and do a little back stitch. So we'll stitch that first. Then the next step is to take these 2 and stitch these 2 together. So that would be block 6 and the petal. And then we'll go on from there. Step 3 on page 14 is to take this set right here, put it right sides together with this one, and you can offset your seams, your seam allowances at the seam allowance right here, pin your beginning and end, and continue as we've been doing, being careful again not to stitch into the seam allowance. So here's that step complete. Now we'll take diamond 1, and it's going to fit right here. I'm going to put it right sides together. I'll do our pinning at both ends and in the middle, matching up the seam lines, and I will stitch only this seam. So here's a look at the seam I just stitched. And as you can see, I did keep my seam allowances free because now I have to turn this and get just these 2 seam allowances right sides together, and because they're free, they're going to easily do that. I'll have to fold my petal block like so, and again I will stitch between the ends of the basting stitches, keeping the seam allowances free to attach the rest of this diamond. Diamond 1's attached. Now we will attach diamond 2 exactly the same way, right sides together with the petal, and I'll stitch this seam here first. So this seam is stitched. Again, I'm repeating myself. I did not stitch into the seam allowance, so that way I can fold the petal block and I can get in there and stitch the last side of the diamond for this particular unit between the ends on the basting stitch. Here's my completed corner unit from page 15, and it's got blocks 4, 5, and 6 in the corner, the petal block, and then diamond 1 and diamond 2. So we need to make 2 of these. And then the next page, you're going to go ahead and do 2 of these. And this is block 1, 2, and 3, the petal, and diamond 1 and diamond 2. So just follow the layout. The assembly is exactly like the other corner unit, and you'll make 2 of these. So we are to page 16, where we're going to start to put all these components together. So I have my middle of my rolling star sitting on the table. This is diamond 1, this is diamond 2, so you need to have it in this orientation. And then we take these petal sections that we made earlier with the 2 triangles on the top, and we're going to place those north, south, east, and west. So we'll put them right sides together, and we're going to pin like we've been doing, keeping all the seam allowances free. And you need to stitch on this one. I found it best to start in the middle, stitch to the end of the seam, and then start in the middle and stitch this direction to the end of the seam. I found if I go straight across, I end up having to take it out because something shifted. So that's just my little hint for this. So let's get all 4 of these stitched on, and then we'll come back. So we are now to the point where at page 17 on the instructions, which is to add the 4 corners that we've put together. And I have them pinned to my wall with the corners kind of sticking out so you can kind of see where they're going. And you want to be sure that your 2 green or your 2 diamonds are opposite colors when they point, when they're put in place. I have a light green diamond and a dark green diamond. I want them to be together. I don't want the dark greens and the light greens together. So this is a good time to kind of check yourself and make sure your layout is perfect. And so we will start putting in the corners by sewing the petal seam on this block to the pink wood grain seam right here. We'll start by doing that. I'll do 1 corner at a time. And then we'll sew the sides of the diamonds here to the side of the petal on both sides. And then we'll finish it off by stitching this side of the diamond to the side of the wood triangle. So now that you have the large overview, let's get a little bit closer look at how we're going to stitch it together. So this wood triangle will first get stitched to this petal. So we'll put those right sides together, pin as we've been doing, keeping our seam allowances out of the way, and we will start in the center and work your way out to the corners on this seam right here. So I stitched that seam. I've kept my seam allowances free. So now we're going to attach both sides of this diamond seam right here. So we'll just fold the quilt until those seams line up. And again, because we didn't stitch into the seam allowance, they line up very easily. We'll pin just like we've been doing, and we will stitch between these 2 seams right here. So I stitched these 2 seams in my diamond, and the final 2 seams for this corner are the diamond attaching to the triangle block on both sides. So all we got to do is fold it in half, pin everything together, and stitch in between the 2 ends of the seam. So this entire corner is now stitched on. So I just have to repeat those same steps with all the rest of the corners. Here she is, all finished up and ready for me to do a little pressing now. So we will turn it over. And we've already pressed the middle. So we'll just take some time and use my strip stick that I talked about earlier, that's got a curve on one side, flat side on the other. If you don't have a strip stick, you could use like a seam roll, or just take care and not put a lot of pressure from your full iron on your seams, because you don't want to squish your beautiful quilting. So I'm just going to start from the outside in and just work my way into the middle of the quilt where it's already pressed, and just put the seams to one side, whatever works when you get there. So I'll come back when it's all pressed to show you how it looks.
Okay, so that was part 2 of the Rolling Star Barn Quilt assembly. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks. Bye.